Welcome back to the Dynasty Football Maniacs. Today episode, we are going to talk about wide receiver rookies coming out 2024. How exciting. I believe this is probably one of the better wide receiver classes coming out. I mean, it's a lot of debates. So I'd be definitely interested to find out what Austin's top 10 is. And I'm going to reveal my top 10.
Well, I want to hear what your top 10 is, but before we get into that, I have the question of the episode ready. Are you ready for it?
Oh, I'm ready for it. What's the question of the episode?
All right. So, the question of the episode is who do you think is going to be the wide receiver one for the Kansas City Chiefs in 2024?
Oh, my.
And I want everybody in the comments to comment on this as well because I'd like to hear y'all's opinion on it. But
I'm going to leave
that
the
is the
audience.
question.
I'm going to let the audience decide this one for me because
I thought it was a pretty interesting question.
the tight end count, because it'd probably be Kelsey.
Oh no, Kelsey's only got 2 more years or left, probably depending on how things go. So they're gonna have to get a wide receiver. Well, they still need a wide receiver one eventually, regardless of Kelsey being there.
Yeah. All right. That's a good question. So let me know what you guys think because I'd be interested in what everybody out there thinks. Who's going to be the number one wide receiver for Kansas City? Because that's
It's
one
a
of the
carousel.
hardest. Yeah, it is a carousel there, and it's hard to determine. We already know they most likely will draft a wide receiver in this draft this year.
Hmm.
That guy could be the number one wide receiver. It depends on who they draft. I mean,
Well,
it's whoever
why don't
Mahomes wants to throw the ball to.
why don't we get into the rookie rankings and we'll see if one of them could be it.
Yes, let's do that. So here we are, agreeing with the top three, and this time not jumbling the order up. We're just straightforward, you and me, Austin. I got Marvin Harris Jr. as number one. You have Marvin Harris Jr. as number one. Your number two is Malik Nabers. My number two is Malik Nabers. Your number three is Rome Odunze, and my number three is Rome Odunze.
I
So, I
think
mean, well,
I
two of
think
these players didn't even participate in the combine. Malik Nabers or Marvin Harris. They're both very talented. Didn't need
they're
to
still
really. They're still going to get drafted in the top. Um,
these. I think all three of these guys could potentially be their wide receiver number one, depending on where they go. Unless the team already has a wide receiver number one, if they don't, these three right here could automatically just be their wide receiver one, in my opinion, because all these three they just look so good when you watch them.
I'm going to throw a trick question out. Now,
Okay,
throw out the part that he won the Heisman Trophy. Don't even put that in the equation.
okay,
And let's take a couple years back. What if Devontae
okay.
Smith came out with Marvin Harris Jr. and Malik Nabers and Rome Odunze? I mean, how would you judge that class? Like, where would you put Devontae Smith, honestly?
He he would be behind all three of them, in my opinion.
That's how my thoughts are. I believe he would be my number fourth. And there's no disrespect to him. He's a great player, and he deserved the Heisman the year he won it. I mean, there wasn't too many out there that did what he did, and a lot of it was Alabama had that team.
Oh
So
yeah,
you couldn't take that away from him.
I
Um,
would I would I would go with the top three with Marvin Harrison, Malik Nabers, and Rome Odunze. But I would put Devontae right behind Rome Odunze in front of the other guys that we're going to talk about later.
yeah, I'm kind of in that agreement, and I kind of threw that out. I know Austin wasn't ready for that one,
I actually took me by surprise.
but I was thinking about it last night when I was going through some of the stuff, and I was like, where would you put him? I mean, he's a good wide receiver. Now he's number two at Philly, but you got AJ Brown there. Um, but I mean, looking at him, I mean, he would be the number four guy because after that, this is a drop off. I mean, it's not a big drop off because there's some right behind Rome that is just as good, but I still give him the edge.
Well,
So that goes to our number 4, where we disagree slightly.
let me ask you this before
Okay.
we go. This is one more thing before we move. Since you want to throw me a surprise, I'm gonna throw you a surprise.
Oh, that's what I want this to be, is a surprise. Give me what you
Now,
got.
out of them three, if we if it was in the scenario the same way you played it, where would you put T. Higgins in this group?
Even though he's the number 2 wide receiver, I'd actually put him above Rome Odunze. I
Well,
would
I
leave
think
Marvin Harris Jr. 1, Malik Nabers 2, and then T. Higgins number 3.
if T. Higgins wasn't playing with Jamar Chase, I think he could be potentially wide receiver one if he went anywhere else.
I believe so too. That's why I would actually jump him up. I would put him in 3. I don't think he'd be number 1, but he would be my 3rd, and he'd be a close. Them 3 were right there. He joined that same class. I mean, it would be like if I was tearing it out, it'd be Marvin Harris, Malik Nabers, and then it would be T. Higgins and Rome Odunze. That's
I
how I
can
would
see that.
tear it. That's
I
how
can see that.
exactly I would tear it out. And I mean, it. Yeah, that was a good one. That's what we
All
need
right,
to do.
yeah, we can move on now. But I wanted your
Yeah,
opinion on that. See what you thought about it.
and that's almost like the next wide receiver we're fixing to bring up is in that kind of situation. What if he wasn't the number 2 wide receiver behind Malik Nabers? Would you have ranked him 4th, and would he been the number 1? And that's Brian Thompson Jr. And I don't have him ranked number 4th. I have him down my ranking. He's in my top 10, but he was very competitive with Malik Nabers there and was able to do a lot. So my number 4 is Troy Franklin.
Oh, even after the combine, or I would, I
I mean,
still like Troy Franklin.
yeah,
I
Troy
still
Frank.
like him.
Okay, so after the combine, it was only 10 seconds apart. Okay, I can see where you're saying
But but
athleticism scores a little bit.
I s- I still would take now if Troy Franklin were to happen to fall to Kansas City, I could potentially actually raise my rankings up if he were to like go somewhere like Kansas City. Like Brian Thomas, and I could think that if Malik Nabers wasn't there and it was just the Brian Thomas show, he would actually probably be talking about Brian Thomas in the top 3 instead of Malik Nabers if he wasn't with Brian Thompson on the same team. Now, if they're still in the same class, Malik Nabers is still going to be right where he's at right now. But if this was a different class and Brian Thomas was on a separate team that wasn't involving him, I could see him being potentially up there.
Yeah, and you have him ranked number 5. So right after
Right.
Brian Thomas, you have Troy Franklin, and then
So you could go either way.
yeah, and then I added Ladd McConkey. Um, I have him as my number 5, just right above Brian Thompson Jr. So our top 6 are the same. It's just that little lower half is jumbled up.
Ladd McConkey is going to be looks like a great route runner to me.
Yes,
He look
short.
he's look he could be like in the top 5 in this class of being the having the best route running.
I do agree with that. And then number 7, you have Adonai Mitchell, and I have Keon Coleman.
So we just
Um,
had it switched.
yeah, actually 7 and 8. Basically, we switched them. I
Ah,
mean, we just it was kind of tough. I was going back and forth between the 2, and that's just the order I put them in. Uh,
yeah, I was too. I was going back and forth between them as well.
so I mean, they both. I mean, Coleman did a lot better at Florida State than he did at. Well, it was it was about almost the same average at Michigan State.
Hmm.
But you got to think about it. Florida State lost their quarterback at the end there, so that kind of impacted his numbers. He definitely did decent at the combine. From the other stuff I've seen, I'm probably still stuck more on Coleman. Mitchell, on the other hand, he also did about. I mean, if you compare numbers to numbers to both of them, they're about equivalent. There's not much difference. I mean, average is a little higher by 1 yard. Um, yeah, they're about the same. There's not too much difference between
So,
Mitchell and Coleman.
so my comparison to for Mitchell. Now, don't kill me on this,
All
but
right.
the way I saw him play, I saw him playing as Kadarius Toney, but with better hamstrings and can catch the ball better.
You said hamstrings as in legs or in hands where you could actually catch it.
Both.
Okay. Now I'm not trying to knock anybody,
He,
but somebody's been getting hit really
let,
hard
let,
in the
let's
hands lately, dropping the ball. I didn't know if we're going there.
let's let's just call a spade a spade. Kadarius Toney's legs just cannot keep up. They're made of gelatin or something. Because every time you turn around, he is on the bench because of a hammy. And then even when he's on the field, when's the last time you actually see him consistently catch balls? It's been a while for me. I mean,
Yeah, it seems like they bounce right off his hands when he hits.
but he's still athletic and he's got athletic capabilities. It's just his hands and stuff. And that's where I think Mitchell will be. He's got the abilities just like Kadarius Toney's, but I think he's got way better hands. And so far, his hamstrings has actually held up with his body.
Okay, I can see that. So the next one you got, number 9, you have Roman Wilson. And I have
Sometimes for you.
Xavier Legette
Oh,
from South Carolina. Now,
what? Really?
yes.
All right, you're gonna have to persuade me.
All right. So I went with Xavier from South Carolina just because this last season he really showed out. It finally became his season. I think it was a lot of it. I don't know. I mean, he just did really well. Um, Looking at Roman Wilson's stats, he did okay. I mean, he had 15 games, 48 receptions, 789 yards. Xavier, he had 71 receptions and 1,255 yards, and on average 17.7. I know he's a little older, um, but he's an ideal size for a wide receiver. He's 6'1, 217 pounds. He ran a 40-yard dash at 4.39. I mean, he has a lot of potential there. So that's kind of why I put him up at 9 and brought him in the top 10. I know 2022, 21, 2000, 2019, you didn't see much out of him for whatever reason. Um, but he definitely did good this last year. So
I
I,
think Roman Wilson is gonna be a great slot receiver, especially for his size. Whatever team he lands on, I think he's gonna be a great slot receiver.
yeah, I can see that. And that's why I also have Roman Wilson in my top 10. So he's right under Xavier.
He kind of
Um,
reminds me of Marvin Mims.
oh, okay.
That's from what I've watched in the video and all the highlights and stuff when I was watching film on him. He kind of reminded me of Marvin Mims. But yeah, that's the reason why I like Roman Wilson. Yeah, he doesn't have the staggering numbers that you like to see, but when you're on an offense that likes to run the ball 85, 90% of the time, it's going to be kind of hard to get them numbers up, but even so, he still caught he had 12 receiving touchdowns, which is actually great for a running whenever you're on a running offense. So I think he would just be really great in a if he goes to a team that like they need to get like if a team needs a receiver that isn't if they already have a number one and maybe a number two, Ron Wilson, you got Ron Wilson, put him in the slot. I think that would be a great offense to have.
Okay, I can see that. Looking at that, I can see that. It's not too far off.
No, I don't think it is.
What kind of amazes me is the spread that the rankings have them. Like when you go to the professional rankings,
Uh huh.
this is our top 10, and this is who we thought should be in the top 10. I mean, most of it we got right. Like if we're comparing to the professionals or the experts, um, where they tiered them are different. But I can see why they tiered Marvin Harris Jr. in tier two and not tier one. One, he hasn't played the field yet. But it's just hard to believe they have him down that low. Because didn't they have Caleb Williams in tier one for quarterbacks?
Uh, Wait, I have to
No,
look that
no, they
up.
did. No, they did not. They had him in tier two.
Right.
So, so I get it. But Malik Nabers dropping to tier three. I don't agree with that. I think he should have stayed for tier two with Marvin Harris. Rome Odunze, they have him all the way down to tier four. So they got him spread out. And then you don't see no other free agents or no other rookies until tier seven, where you got Troy Franklin and Xavier Worthy. Now, Xavier Worthy didn't make our top 10. Yes, he was impressive on the 40-yard dash. I liked it. I just didn't see anything else that said that's my wide receiver I'm going to go and grab. I mean, these are the top 10 I'm going to shoot for in a draft and at different areas.
So who was your 10th spot?
Roman Wilson.
Okay.
Yeah, so the only
Well,
difference we had in our top 10 was you had Burton and I
yeah,
had
Jermaine
Xavier.
Burton.
Yeah, Jermaine
I don't know.
Burton.
Jermaine Burton's. I think he's just kind of he's like that sneaky guy that if you're trying to, especially in dynasty leagues, if you're trying to fill up a flex spot, if you're filling up a flex spot, and you want to take a chance on a guy who's, he's 6 foot, 196 pounds. I think he had a pretty good year in Alabama this past year.
Well, I just dawned on me
So
why you picked him. Okay.
no, it ain't because of that either.
Okay, I'm just messing with you.
No, because if we really want to, I could say that you could easily go over Malik Nabers over down
Oh, come on,
Marvin
man.
Harrison. But no, in all seriousness, I mean, Jermaine Burton could fit on a team, especially if because he's projected to be in the late second round. A late second round wide receiver. I mean, that's just asking for the number two spot on a team that if they don't have a number two spot. I
Right.
just now I could easily now there was some people that I considered putting at the number 10 spot, but when I watched him over all the other ones, I just like this tape a lot better than I did the other people behind him.
Yeah, I did have Burton in my top 15. So I believe he was my number 13th on my list. So he was looking in, but hadn't crest over. A lot depends on his landing spot. So yes, I could see picking him up in a flex if he lands in a good area that's needy for wide receivers, or you have a wide receiver roller coaster kind of carousel going in and out. I would definitely pick him up in a flex, like say in late round, Kansas City picks him up, well, then he would become my interest. So
Now,
I wouldn't rule him out after that point.
now I do have one question.
All right.
that I think that I want to see what you think. Um, and the out of the first round of the draft, how many wide receivers do you think are gonna get taken in the first round?
I haven't really been keeping up with it. Definitely know 32 picks.
I already have my answer. If you want me to give you mine.
Give me yours and then I'll give you mine.
Okay, I think there could be a chance of we at least see 10 wide receivers go in the first round.
I was going to go more 8, but I also could see 10. But it'd be like towards the end. I don't know which ones would it be. I know, or at least our top
R-
5. Everybody we named in our
Right,
top 5 or top 6
right.
will probably be that part of that class.
Well, I think it's anywhere between, like you said, 8 or 10 because this wide receiver class is so deep. I
Yes.
mean, this wide receiver class is so deep, and there's a lot of teams that need need a number one or a number two or a number three guy. And if you draft a wide receiver, my opinion, if you draft a wide receiver in the first round, they're either going to be your bona fide number one or they're going to be sitting in the second spot, eventually going to take over to be your wide receiver number one in the future.
Yeah. So just like looking at the rankings they have, after you dropped off 4 with Rome Tuesday, you drop
Hmm.
down in tier 7. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rookie wide receivers there in tier 7, and only one of them is not on either one of our lists, and that's Xavier Worthy. We have Franklin, Coleman, Mitchell, Conkley, and Roman Wilson
See,
all in the top 7.
I know Xavier Worthy broke the record for the 40-yard dash or whatever, but if you look back at history with all the players who actually either broke the record or was around close to it, they're it's not very big, amazing careers that a lot of these people had. I'm not saying that Xavier Worthy isn't going to be something great. It's just, just I know speed kills, but just because you're the fastest guy doesn't mean your career is going to be, the most outstanding.
Right.
I just thought that was very interesting, but I do. It was very. I did love seeing him breaking that 40-yard record though. I was pretty hyped up after I saw that.
Oh yeah, that's exciting when they break records like that. I mean, it doesn't matter if they become someone or not. Just it's
All
interesting when
right,
that
it's
that it's achieved.
yeah,
Um,
because that is something that only he has done, and I will never be able to do in my entire life.
oh, either would I. I mean, that's extraordinary. So the only other one we're going to stop at tier 8. The only other one that's on our list that made it all the way to tier 8 was Xavier Legette. Um, he's in tier 8 alone by himself, with a bunch of other uh, wide receivers like John Mitchie, A.T. Perry, Devon Peoples Jones,
Mhm.
Atwell, Sky Moore, Michael Gallup. So he's in that class. KJ Osborne, Odell Beckham Jr. is down at 8, along with Michael Thomas. So Alec Pierce, Cedric Tillman. So he's in that class. I'd have to scroll down a little bit further to start picking up some other guys that we had picked. But
They,
that covers
they
it. I mean,
these are
we
all going to be changed, especially when we find out their landing spot.
oh yeah.
I think you'll see a lot of them rise up, especially depending on their landing spot. I think they're all going to rise. But you'll have several of them actually jumping up into the top in the second tier spot, and then
Yeah.
you'll probably see Marvin Harrison or Malik Nabers, depending on where they go. They might actually be in the higher end, like on the very top of the tier two spot.
And in all honesty, Marvin Harris and Malik Nabers is pick your poison. It would not surprise me, and it wouldn't be like, oh my, what a shocker, if I'm sitting in a draft, a rookie draft, and someone picked Malik Nabers before they picked Marvin Harris. It wouldn't be like, oh, I'd fall out of my seat and that'd be the end of it. I mean, I could see that happening. My preference would be Marvin Harris. Someone else's preference could be Malik Nabers. I don't think I'd ever pick Rome above them two, and I don't think we're going to see that in the draft. Depending on what league you draft in on Dynasty, if it's a full flex with a quarterback, I believe the first couple picks would be depending on the team that has the 101. Most of them are going to be quarterbacks. They're going to fly off. Caleb Williams, Jaden
In a
Daniels,
super flex.
yeah, the super flex. It wouldn't surprise me if Malik Nabers did go. Someone picked him number one.
Now, even in Superflex, I'll be honest with you, I would still probably get Marvin Harrison at the 101 in the Superflex.
Oh, I'll tell you right now, if that other league we're in gets voted in to be a super flex, I'm happy with my quarterbacks. Marvin Harris is my 101. So no one think that because they're voting that in that I'm giving up Marvin Harris, because that's the question I always get asked. Am I going to give up Marvin Harris because this is going to get voted in as a super flex league now? If we make that change, I'm good with it because I have Baker Mayfield, CJ Stroud, and Russell the Muscle. So I mean, I know that ain't the best thing to go in there, but it's better than what most people have. And all I'm going to do is add Marvin Harris Jr. with DJ Moore as my two wide receivers.
Right.
So if anything, that is my ideal. And in the other league that's already a super flex, you already know what my 101 is on that. I am going with Marvin Harris Jr. again. See, I'm letting everybody know. So if you're watching the show, pay attention. Because I'm taking Marvin Harris again. Because after that, I got the 103. That's when I'm going to grab my quarterback. So if whoever has the 102, you need to think really serious about what you're going to pick, because I am grabbing a quarterback at the 103.
They'll just throw CJ Stroud out there and try to make an offer to you, and you'll fall in love with CJ Stroud and try to get him.
I have tried that with the guy with CJ Stroud, and he does not want to budge. I have thrown the kitchen sink at him, and he's refused to take it.
Well, can you blame him?
No. So I've accepted the reality that league I will never see CJ Stroud unless he falls down and he's not good no more. I've accepted that truths, and I've moved on.
Well,
so,
I'll tell you what,
for a brighter future.
I can tell next time when a starting quarterback from Ohio State comes into the draft who is going to be high up there, you can grab him and you can hold on to him for his career.
Well, next year in one of the leagues I have 2 first-round picks, but that's all I have for 2025 right now. So I don't know where them picks are going to be, because it depends on where that person finishes and where I finish. I doubt very much I won't trade either one of them picks away, because that's all I have next year. So in one league I'll have that first round. In the other league I don't have no first rounds left, and all I have is a bunch of seconds and thirds. But you can still make magic happen with seconds and thirds. So I'm looking forward to it.
Hey, you can get hidden values in second and third.
Yeah, so it's not a game ender. So that covers our top 10 wide receivers for the rookies for 2024. So do you have anything else, Austin?
Nope. The only thing I want to ask everybody is to like, share, and subscribe.
Yes, definitely.
Sharing is caring.
There.
And also in the comments, answer the question of the episode. Who do you think who would be the wide receiver one coming in the 2024 for the Kansas City Chiefs?
Yes, I would like to know your guys' answer, because I have no clue. And my two guesses are Pachenko and Kelsey.
They're technically, I know Kelsey.
They're not wide receivers, but I know that I'm going to pick them.
I know Kelsey's out there catching the balls, but technically he's not. He's a tight end. If I understand correctly, but
I don't know who the wide receiver one will be, but I know who the primary target will be. And
I think it's either gonna be the rookie whoever they draft, or it's gonna be Rashee Rice.
I could see Rice. Yeah, I could go with that.
Very good.
My
That'll
my
work.
my back end's starting to get rowdy. I can start hearing them, so I think they're ready to break loose to the house. Thunder's fixing to roar into Crabtree's residence. The
Well,
children have been at bay.
you better let them roar.
Yeah, they're gonna tear the house down. They're like, Daddy ain't done yet. I can hear them. I'm ready. The door's gonna open in a minute. I was like, I'm sweating here. Whoo, I gotta get this episode done.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, that's why I was starting to get nervous. I thought I was fixing to have children running by. Shoo, shoo.